Get started. Can you hear us, Tammy?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. So we'll start today's meeting with the kind of the official statement that is read for all the virtual meetings. The project subcommittee of the Critical Area Commission is holding this meeting virtually. This meeting is being held using Microsoft Teams and will be streamed live to the public. The public will be able to view the meeting from the Commission's website, and the meeting will be closed captioned. Minutes of the meeting will be provided on our website. And so I will turn it over to Critical Area Commission staff to go through the roll call.
Thanks, Tammy. So I have staff here, commissioners here today is Commissioners Robertson, Commissioner McCarthy, Commissioner Grant, Commissioner Roche, Commissioner Hance, Commissioner Morgan, and Commissioner Marion. Are there any commissioners that I did not capture? All right, so we have 7. So Commissioner Robertson, whenever you're ready.
All right, perfect. The next order of business is the approval of the December 2023 Project Committee minutes. May I have a motion to approve the December minutes?
Motion to approve the December minutes.
Commissioner Grant?
Yes.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Grant. May I have a second motion to approve?
You have a second.
All right, and that was Commissioner
Marion.
Marion, thank you. All right, any amendments or discussions for the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any denials? Any abstentions? All right, we'll move on to the first agenda. So as mentioned earlier, the following project will be presented as information only, and there will be no vote on this project today. Susan McClough will be presenting on draft mitigation banking MOU for Queen Anne's County, and at the completion, there will be an opportunity for commissioners to discuss and provide initial thoughts and comments.
Okay, thank you, Chair Robertson. Just give me 1 minute to begin sharing my screen. Okay, can everyone see the presentation now?
Yes. Well, it's in
Okay.
It's not in
Okay.
slide.
How
There
does
we
it
go.
look now?
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much. So once again, good morning, everyone. I'm Susan McClough, and I will be presenting the Queen Anne's County Critical Area Commission Mitigation Banking MOU. Queen Anne's County has requested to meet with the project subcommittee to discuss the draft MOU for preliminary review and comment before officially submitting it to the commission for approval. Before we continue, I'd like to introduce Queen Anne's County staff who are attending the meeting today. We have Stephanie Jones, the Long Range Principal Planner, and Steve Cahoon, Public Facilities Planner. So I'd like to begin by sharing an outline for the presentation. We'll begin with the purpose and need for a mitigation banking MOU. Then we'll make our way through the MOU itself. Exhibit A is a technical guidance document that outlines the processes and procedures that will be followed to establish mitigation banks. Exhibit B includes templates and a spreadsheet related to reporting and credit tracking requirements. At the conclusion of the presentation, the subcommittee will be asked to provide feedback regarding the structure and components of the draft MOU. So under Natural Resources Article 8-1808, Queen Anne's County was required to develop and implement a critical area protection program. Per COMAR 270102, project approvals in the critical area must satisfy development standards related to buffer mitigation and non-buffer forest mitigation. In addition, projects located in the IDA must reduce pollutant loadings by at least 10%. In certain instances, these mitigation standards are not able to be met on site, in which case the county may collect a fee in lieu for the required mitigation. In addition to collecting fee in lieu for private development projects, the county itself is required to provide mitigation for county projects for which mitigation cannot be accommodated on site. The MOU will provide a clear, consistent process reviewed and approved by the Commission to utilize the fee in lieu funds on appropriate planting projects and to address mitigation requirements for county projects. So the goals of the MOU are to, 1, create mitigation banks on parcels or lots already identified by the county. 2, utilize existing fee in lieu funds on these sites to address past mitigation obligations for private projects. 3, to fulfill existing county mitigation obligations. And 4, outline a process to identify and approve additional mitigation banks to address future mitigation obligations. So the proposed MOU is comprised of 2 exhibits, and each exhibit has several attachments. Exhibit A includes a site analysis process to identify suitable mitigation banking sites and a credit approval process to assess, track, and release credits from approved banks, along with planting agreement and easement templates. Exhibit B is related to tracking and reporting requirements, and it includes templates for the required annual reports, the credit tracking spreadsheet, and the credit release form. It will also include separate attachments for each approved mitigation bank. So Exhibit A is the technical
connected.
guidance document.
I'm
sorry.
Thank you.
Exhibit A is the technical guidance document, and it outlines the processes and procedures that will be followed to establish mitigation banks. These include a site analysis process, a credit approval process, guidance related to planting, site preparation, monitoring and maintenance, and permanent protection requirements. Mitigation banks may be used to address buffer mitigation, non-buffer forest clearing, and the critical area 10% pollutant reduction requirement. The memo summarizes each of the sections in Exhibit A, and you can also reference the MOU itself for additional details. This slide lists the section headings, which include location criteria, site preparation guidance, invasive species management, monitoring and maintenance requirements, permanent protection mechanisms, and submission requirements. The next several slides will provide highlights for each of these sections. So the establishment of mitigation banks includes 1, finding an acceptable location supported by ecological and opportunity evaluation tools. 2, establishing a credit and debit system. 3, planting, maintenance, and monitoring requirements. 4, protection and perpetuity. And 5, completing all steps and providing all documents required in the approval process. Banks will be established within the critical area or at alternative locations outside of the critical area approved by Commission staff. Banks can also be established through agreements with cooperating public and/or private entities as approved by Commission staff. A minimum of 1-to-1 replacement of forest in the critical area is required, and areas outside the critical area may be considered for a bank if they have an ecological connection to the critical area. Mitigation bank credits will be established on a 1-to-1 ratio using the areal extent of forest created. Creation of other types of ecosystem habitat, for example, wetland adaptation or migration corridors, pollinator habitat, etc., will be considered for credits on a case-by-case basis. The MOU also allows for preservation credits, but only under the following parameters. No more than 1/2-to-1 credit will be assigned to preservation. The county must provide justification to Commission staff for the consideration of preservation credits. Preservation credits will only be considered for forest that's not already permanently protected. And preservation can only be used for a project once a 1-to-1 replacement of trees cleared has been met for the project. So the site preparation section outlines steps to follow once the Commission and county agree on a site. And these include selective mowing and/or herbicides to remove invasive species and allowing existing native vegetation to continue growing. The planting plan will consist of a variety of native coastal plain species and will include a canopy layer, understory layer, and shrub layer. The MOU includes several references for species that are native to the coastal plain of Maryland, including the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Native Plants Guidance document that you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. Mowing around trees is encouraged to control competing vegetation, and tree tubes and bird netting should be installed as necessary. Generally, 400 woody stems per acre is the goal, and natural regeneration can be included if there is an adjacent forest to provide recruitment. The MOU also includes several references for the identification of invasive species and a list of priority species to control. Mitigation bank plantings will be monitored for survival success for 5 years following planting, and the county will submit a monitoring report to the commission for each year of the 5-year monitoring period due on March 1st for the previous calendar year. A final inspection will be completed by county and commission staff at the end of the 5th year to ensure the site is meeting all requirements, including survivability. The credits will be tracked using attachment B2, the mitigation credit tracking spreadsheet, which we'll discuss a little bit later in this presentation. The county will notify the commission as soon as possible of any activities or events, including natural disasters and emergencies that might impact a mitigation bank. And county and commission staff will work together to determine the best course of action for any impacts. Mitigation banks must be under a permanent conservation easement held by Queen Anne's County or an approved third party. The county will periodically inspect the mitigation banks after the initial 5-year monitoring period to ensure that forested conditions are maintained and invasive species do not overtake the site. Permitted uses will be consistent with forest conservation and management and be limited to passive recreation. The use of ATVs and other motorized vehicles is prohibited. Any trails that are allowed should be public and consistent with the Commission's Public Pathways Guidance document. Structures are prohibited except for fencing, and any parking areas must be located outside the areas established for mitigation credit. The MOU also includes a list of information and documents that are required as part of a complete submittal for a new mitigation bank. These include a signed cover letter, a mitigation bank submittal report, which includes a detailed site-specific analysis, a site preparation plan, a planting plan, a signed planting agreement, and a maintenance and monitoring plan. So attachment A1 is the site analysis process, and it could be considered one of the most important parts of this MOU. The purpose of this site-specific analysis is to ensure that approved mitigation banks will provide significant ecological benefits to replace the habitat and water quality benefits that have been lost due to development. Attachment A1 includes 2 mapping tools that can be used to analyze proposed sites. However, the county may use any and all available resources to identify and evaluate potential banking sites. The Watershed Resources Registry helps locate properties with opportunities for restoration or preservation of uplands, wetlands, riparian areas, and stormwater infrastructure areas. DNR's green print displays targeted ecological areas, which are lands and watersheds of high ecological value that have been identified as conservation priorities by DNR. So the result of the site analysis process will be a mitigation bank submittal report, which is required for a complete submission to commission staff when the county proposes a new mitigation bank. The submittal report will include detailed, specific ecological information for any proposed mitigation site, in addition to current site conditions, information regarding habitat protection areas, climate resilience information, and an estimate of potential mitigation credits. Attachment Attachment A2 is the credit approval process for mitigation banks. Proposals for new banks will include an estimate of the potential mitigation credits broken out by type, so buffer, non-buffer forest, and the critical area 10%. Commission staff will review the proposal and verify the potential credits the site could provide. The potential credits will be tracked using the mitigation credit tracking spreadsheet, and the credits will be released upon completion of a 5-year monitoring period and in accordance with review and approval of the credit release form which must be signed by commission staff. So attachment A3 is the planting agreement template, and this will be used to prepare a planting agreement, which is also required for a complete submittal. The planting agreement must be signed by county staff and includes the number and acres of trees planted, pre-planting site preparation information, and post-planting measures for deer control and invasive species management. Attachment A4 is the easement template, and this template was used for a recently approved critical area forest conservation easement. This is the easement that was used for the armored storage growth allocation, which, as you may recall, the commission approved with conditions last year. The template will require modification for each specific bank. However, the template will provide a framework to assist in drafting the specific easements. So as noted earlier, Exhibit B of the MOU is all about tracking and reporting, and it includes templates for the required annual reports, the credit tracking spreadsheet, and the credit release form. It will also include separate attachments for each approved mitigation bank. The mitigation tracking spreadsheet will be used to track mitigation credits, and the credits will be tracked by mitigation type. Each credit will be tied to a specific project, and all credits will be tracked over a 5-year monitoring period. A final inspection will be completed by county and commission staff at the end of the 5th year to ensure the site is meeting all requirements. And credits may not be used until notice is provided via the credit release form signed by commission staff. The annual monitoring report template will be used to prepare the annual reports during the required 5-year monitoring period. The monitoring reports will include information regarding the condition of the plantings, including any evidence of animal damage and/or invasive species. The reports will also describe the maintenance, for example, the mowing, the herbicide use, vegetation replacement, etc., performed during the previous year, and the planned maintenance activities for the upcoming year. The reports, which must be signed and dated by the inspector, will be submitted to commission staff by March 1st for the previous calendar year. The credit release form signed by commission staff is the official notice of credit release. So as written, the MOU will also include separate attachments for each approved mitigation bank. The county has proposed a mitigation bank known as Lot 16 on a 20-acre county-owned lot located at the intersection of Roman Coke Road and Mattapex Plantation Lane on Southern Kent Island in Stevensville. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Claudia Jones, the Critical Area Science Advisor, and she's going to provide some additional information regarding Lot 16. So Claudia, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Good morning, everyone. As Susan said, Lot 16 is the first property that the county has proposed as a mitigation bank. I don't know if it's right across the bridge from Annapolis, as Susan indicated, on Kent Island. And I don't know if you can point, there's a red blob that's kind of small south of where it says Kent Island, and that's, yeah, perfect. Thanks, Susan. That's where the bank is located. The lot has been owned by the county since 1997. It was previously farmed. The county mowed it for a while. They were planning to do some recreational activities there, but they decided not to, and they stopped mowing it in 2019. To start with the analysis of the site, critical area staff visited the site in the fall of 2022, and we found that there was existing vegetation, a combination of native and invasive species. Invasive species were primarily grasses and shrubs. Native species growing on the site included persimmon trees, goldenrod, marsh hibiscus, and some loblolly pine that had been planted. After the site visit, critical area staff provided the county recommendations for site management and development of a planting plan, an invasive species management plan, suggestions for additional species that should do well on the site, with the understanding that the county would develop a specific planting, maintenance, and monitoring plan for the site. Since then, the county has let us know that they have begun to remove some of the invasives to help the existing native plants grow. And they plan on developing a specific planting, maintenance, and monitoring plan once the MOU is in place. You can go to the next slide, Susan. You can see the site is outlined in blue. Just ignore the little part of the site that's up there along the road, but it's approximately 20 acres, but part of the site is being used as a staging area for the Southern Kent Island sewer project. So that would not be available for the bank at this time. You can see the orange line. That's approximation of where that is. So it's actually about 12 to 14 acres that are available for a bank. Critical area staff did a preliminary analysis using the Water Resources Registry and Greenprint, which were previously mentioned by Susan. The Water Resources Registry identifies properties in Maryland that will provide different restoration opportunities, as Susan indicated. This particular site is identified as having upland restoration opportunities, wetland restoration opportunities, riparian restoration opportunities, and stormwater restoration opportunities. Greenprint, we also looked at, it grades these areas based on the conservation benefits of different actions or restoration activities on an area or parcel. Both the Water Resources Registry and Greenprint indicated that there was a stream and drainage area crossing the property, and this was confirmed during our site visit. It also, as I said, indicated that there are different types of restoration opportunities. If you could go to the next one. Continuation of analysis, looking at the online GIS tools. This is one example of what is provided. This is the effective floodplain. The darker blue on along the stream or drainage area is the 100-year floodplain, and the lighter blue is the 500-year floodplain. The site drains into Shipping Creek. You can go to the next one. This shows wetland adaptation areas. This was using Greenprint, which identifies the most ecologically valuable areas in the state. And it grades different benefits, such as habitat connectivity, supportive aquatic life, wildlife habitat, coastal community resiliency, such as providing coastline protection or flood storage, and future wetland habitat. The green on the site indicates that these areas are projected to develop new wetlands as sea level rise continues. Both the Water Resources Registry and Greenprint support the use of the site for forest and buffer mitigation. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation back over to Susan.
Okay, thank you very much, Claudia. So as noted earlier, the purpose of this project subcommittee discussion is to provide feedback to the county regarding the draft mitigation banking MOU. Based on the feedback you provide, staff intend to officially submit the MOU to the April 17th project subcommittee for a vote and to the full Critical Area Commission for final review and approval at the May 1st commission meeting. The questions on this slide may be helpful to consider during today's discussion. So thank you for your attention, and I will now turn it over to Project Subcommittee Chair Robertson.
All right, if anybody has any comments, questions, or would like to bring anything to the floor to discuss, please raise your hand and we'll, I guess I would like to start with maybe just asking commission staff, are there other counties that have mitigation banks? And just, because I think that's good information to know, just recognizing if a precedent is being set and just having that understanding would be helpful.
As far as I know, this is the first one with a county that we've gotten this far in development with. So yes, county staff and commission staff have met extensively over the past year to, iron out all these issues and really try to anticipate all the questions and concerns, that might that the commission might have regarding, establishing mitigation banking MOUs. So yeah, we're happy to, submit this for discussion. And like I said, as far as I know, it is the first one with the county, first mitigation banking MOU.
All right, I know there was mention of that there's monitoring for 5 years, submitting the annual reports. And then there was mention that there was periodic check-ins or monitoring, but I don't know if any of the documents really went into those details. So can somebody share with what those periodic kind of check-ins look like and what maybe kind of a typical timeline or time frame and kind of expectations of project site conditions are expected?
Sure. Let me see if I am technically skilled enough to bring up the monitoring, maintenance and monitoring reports. That might help. So can you see that on your screen now?
Right. So this is the report that's typically required for the first 5 years.
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Okay.
Yes.
But then after that, yeah, what is the expectation with the periodic check-ins?
Right. So the way it's written right now, the MOU, it's simply that the county will periodically check in on the site after the completion of that required 5-year monitoring period where those reports are submitted, just to ensure the site is still, still maintaining forested conditions and invasive species aren't overtaking the site. We don't have any more specific, information or guidance on that. Just that the county, will be responsible for maintaining forested conditions and, ensuring that the site, isn't overtaken, by invasives or, deer, don't become an issue. But there's nothing beyond that right now.
I guess maybe if the county could maybe speak to what their, I don't know, what thoughts that they've kind of considered at this stage of checking in and after that 5-year monitoring period, because we're planting trees and trees take a little bit longer to really get established compared to maybe, like wetland plants or kind of the herbaceous plants versus kind of our woody vegetation.
Susan, would you like me to comment?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Steve or
Sure.
Stephanie, yes. If you want to step in, maybe how the county might address that, once the 5-year monitoring period is over, if there's like some specific, some specific process the county maybe follows right now for, say, other forested mitigation sites.
Sure. My name's Steve Cahoon. I'm Public Facilities Planner with Queen Anne's County Department of Public Works. Been working with Critical Area Commission staff to put these documents together. First off, I want to thank the commission staff for, doing a very thorough job and going through this and pulling all this information together. And these documents were set up. We had a specific need for a bank at this location, but these documents were set up so that they could be used for future banks in any location in any jurisdiction. So I think that they're very comprehensive and very complete. After the 5-year period, the county's park system has an annual maintenance and inspection program in place. So our Parks Department manages most of the properties in the county that are forested or wooded, and parkland and recreation land and preservation land. The Parks Department will periodically inspect those properties and wrap them into a routine maintenance program. If they see invasives starting to creep into the property from seeds from another property blowing in, then they would factor it in for spraying or cutting or whatever's needed at the time. But what we would do is factor this property. This is a county-owned property. It will remain a county-owned property under the county's protection. And it will become part of it'll be factored in as part of our annual inspection and maintenance program that we do with all our county parkland.
All right, thank you for that. And it might be worth, and a recommendation is to maybe in that MOU kind of expand upon what periodic maintenance or check-ins are, to have that included in the MOU.
Thank you for that. We'll definitely take note of that and make edits to the MOU. Yes, per that recommendation. Thank you.
All right, do we have any other comments or questions?
Tammy, I do, and you may have answered it, Steve, but what I was wondering is, when you say it's designated as preservation, does it always stay that way? And I'm asking that question because if it's a bank that's within the critical area, if another project comes up or if somebody wants to build on it, the commission can probably identify it and say, oh, well, wait a second, we said this was a mitigation bank, versus a bank outside that critical area where if something happens and people want to build, we may not be able to make that connection. So if it's a bank outside of the critical area, does the county have some way of saying, if another project comes up and we want to build on this area, they can say, wait, we designated this as a bank. We need to figure out what to do or how to address this.
Yeah, so I think establishing it as a bank inherently puts limitations and restrictions on the property for the future. We're committed to having the forest mature and be there. And that was part of the selection process. In identifying a site, we had to find a site that this site lends itself because it's standalone. It's not in the middle of a park system that's established where the park could expand into this property. This is really a standalone property. We no longer have an identified use for the property. We are identifying it as a mitigation bank now, and it'll be listed in the county inventory as a mitigation bank in a restricted site, which would mean it would have limited uses, which would, in the case of a mitigation bank, it would just be passive recreation. Walking trails is about the extent of what could be done afterwards. To that extent, the county's committed to limiting and putting restrictions on the property to mirror what we would require of any developer going through the process. When a developer goes through the process and they have a planting area, they have to limit the future use of the property, and we're committed to doing the same thing, so that can be found and those documents are out there available for people to be aware of, and that there is that ongoing restriction with the property, and somebody just can't change their mind and we go in there and put in some park facility or something else.
I'd like to add something. This is Stephanie Jones, long-range principal planner with planning and zoning with Queen Anne's County. This property is already in open space, which means it already has a restriction on top of it, which then there'll also be an easement for this mitigation bank. So there's two legal documents that will be obviously recorded that someone would see if looking up the property. In reference to wanting to build something on a site that might be a mitigation bank, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the MOU it says if there is something to be placed on that location, we just have to provide that mitigation in another location in order to do so. Is that correct?
We
that
do
in
have,
there?
so yeah, as follow-up, yeah, thank you for that, Stephanie, and Stephen, thank you for your question, Commissioner Grant. So yeah, I guess two follow-ups. So in the MOU, we do have that permanent protection section. So the county must provide a mechanism for permanently protecting the mitigation banks, and that includes all banks, including any that might be located outside the critical area. For those and those will only occur if there's an ecological connection to the critical areas. So yes, all banks must be provided that permanent protection mechanism. As far as the language to speak to Stephanie's question about impacts to mitigation banks, the way it's written currently in the MOU is we're thinking more about like impacts due to emergencies or disasters or natural disasters or something like that. We do not right now have language that like would speak to any proposed development on a mitigation bank. So if that's some clarifying language that maybe we would like to include, that because under the permanent protection, the way I'm understanding it, with permanent protection mechanism, that would not be permitted. So that's my best understanding of how that would be addressed with the MOU as currently written.
All right. So I guess what I'm hearing is that maybe clarifying, clarification on in the MOU for no development, clarification that no development should occur on the parcel. Is that what I'm hearing as a consideration that the Queen Anne's County may want to consider including in the MOU? Or
I think it's-
recommendation from the commission staff or commissioners.
I would say it's very clear in there because we have to put an easement on it, and the easement specifically indicates the uses that can and cannot occur. So I don't know that if there's anything further that really needs to be added. I think it's probably pretty clear. We've said it. The easements that for any other critical area easement, it indicates that there can't be development. So I think it's pretty solid, unless you all think otherwise.
Okay, Chair Fisher.
Thank you, Tammy. I have three. I'll just hit them real quick here. But first, I want to say, Stephanie and Steve, thank you for your time this morning. It's never easy to be first in the door with something to the commission, especially a statewide commission. And I really appreciate you working with the team over here to get it to the point that it is. My first question, I should probably know the answer to this, but who can participate in this bank? Is it specifically for Queen Anne's County public projects? Could municipalities within the county sort of sublet, state agencies, private developers? What's the arrangement there?
So our intent in going through this process and establishing the bank is to first have this mitigation bank for county projects. We have utility projects and road projects where we have tree planting obligations, and in a right-of-way, there's no place to plant trees. So this meets that obligation. The county library addition, we have some mitigation that was required for that, and we plan on putting it on this site. So first and foremost, it's to meet the county's obligation for planning. Second, it would be if the county has accepted fee in lieu and accepts that obligation for planting the trees, this site could satisfy that requirement, satisfy our obligation to when we accept fee in lieu. At this point, we aren't planning to make it open and basically, make it open for outside development. It's really to meet county commitments at this point. And this is our first mitigation bank. We're getting up and started and learning as we go. But that's the purpose. It's 12 acres to 15 acres. We imagine we're going to be able to, that we want that reserved for county use only. Future banks, if if we continue to accept fee in lieu or have an obligation, we'll need to find additional banks. But it's really not meant to open it up to general development. It's really to meet county obligations for county projects and fee in lieu, accepting fee in lieu.
Got you. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. And you kind of, I think, may have touched on my next question, and that is one of the issues that we always wrestle with when we're talking about banking, whether it's a state agency or a local jurisdiction, is sort of the geographic coverage of that. In other words, if my impact is in one corner of the county and my mitigation bank is in the other corner of the county, is that equitable to the residents in the impacted area? So I know this is your first one, and certainly this is not intended to grill you, but I'm just wondering, like, long term, are there sites through the LPPRP process or just in your own public inventory that you're considering to eventually get to some of that geographic diversity in the county?
Sure. Excellent question. And yes, so one of the biggest challenges we've had is finding a site on Kent Island for forest mitigation bank. The county was committed to meet our requirements for the Southern Kent Island project, and our projects on Kent Island, county projects on Kent Island, with the mitigation bank on Kent Island. So it was a challenge to find a available county property that was suitable, but we did, and we're happy that it's right in the middle of Kent Island. But as we move forward, we will certainly keep the geography in mind, and I think for the most part, our mitigation obligations are in the Kent Island area. But as we move forward, we'll keep that geographic component in mind in locating the next one.
Great. And I'll finish up my airtime here. And this one might be best directed to Susan or Claudia. But I'm wondering about the natural regeneration piece and either what we need to see or when, at what stage it counts. Yeah, I have very limited understanding of ecology compared to some folks on this call. But I understand that sometimes what you expect to happen eventually doesn't pan out. It's a competition in some cases between natives and invasives. Can someone just sort of talk us through what you need to see and when we are confident that natural regeneration can count, and when does it officially generate credit?
Claudia, do you want to go ahead, or yeah, okay.
Sure. It can count when the plan is developed, and it would count towards the woody stems per acre. And so the yearly monitoring would help address if the natural regeneration is actually occurring. And if it's not, then the county is required to plant to meet that 400 stems per acre requirement. There is some natural regeneration occurring, and when the planting plan is developed, it can take that into consideration and then determine how much canopy trees and understory trees and shrubs and herbaceous actually needs to be planted to meet that goal. And the county forester has actually said that they can help the county develop that plan. And so they would be able to identify the native species and determine what needs to be counted, what needs to be planted additionally.
Great. That sounds good. So it sounds like natural regeneration is a component of what is ultimately a commitment to a healthy native forest. And so backfilling that as needed is part of the plan.
Chair Fisher, yeah, and Claudia, if I could, just to exactly what Claudia just said. So as written right now, we do have language that speaks to exactly that. It says if natural regeneration will be used to meet the 400 woody stems per acre, this should be based on adjacent forest that would provide recruitment and detailed in the planting plan. If recruitment does not occur as anticipated, then planting to meet the 400 woody stems per acre threshold will be necessary. So that language is in the MOU as written now.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Thank
guess
you.
if I could jump in, because I had a similar question as Chair Fisher in regards to, I know the requirement is the 400 stems per acre, but I mean, woody plants take a while to be established. So that's my understanding, is that that's the only criteria for kind of meeting the requirements, and the like caliper or like the DBH of like the tree, that is not taken into consideration at all in identifying, like, you know what, the area is well established and ready for sign off, and that only the 400 trees per acre is really the criteria that is used, and not kind of the caliper of tree that is present.
That's correct. I know, or I think MDE, wetland mitigation banks do take that into consideration. But we haven't, with the assumption that if the invasives are controlled and any deer browse is controlled, that the woody stems per acre will eventually reach maturity with monitoring
All right,
and
thank you.
removal of of invasives. And the invasives should not be any more than 10% of any layer, like canopy or understory or shrub layer. So there's that criteria as well.
All right, I think Commissioner Roche has been patiently waiting.
Yes, thank you. And thank you guys for undertaking this endeavor. It's great to see counties looking to build mitigation as part of their process and hopefully simplify things at some level and, help accomplish the goals of the commission at another level. But my question, I think, echoes Chair Fisher. So if I'm a little bit repetitive, I apologize. But I think these MOUs are going to be really valuable. And I think he mentioned even state agencies are looking to do this for difficult mitigation projects. But my question is, I just want to make sure, and I don't think this is happening. I think you guys are just starting small, but that we don't just identify areas where we're like, oh, we'll just mitigate here. And my question, I guess, is there any possibility or any thought given, or is it possible to really just take the whole county and look at areas that need improvement from a stormwater standpoint? And then it sounds like from a monitoring standpoint and all the other requirements, it would be difficult, but it's like with GIS these days, you could probably look at the entire county and say, these are all the areas that are really not good for the health of the bay and areas that we could effectively get mitigation credits. And to me, that's a more comprehensive approach, even if you fed it out to like partners that are looking to mitigate areas, some of the other nonprofits and stuff. And again, it's just really as much of a question if you guys considered it, do you even think it's feasible? Because I think we all are on here because we want to accomplish as much as possible. We're not just mitigating to get credit. We're mitigating to be effective. And to me, if you took the whole county, look at areas that needed effective mitigation, you put the word out, and whether it's a homeowner that needs a space to mitigate, or whether it's the county that needs to mitigate a space or whatever, you've already pre-identified areas that have the biggest bang for the buck when it comes to mitigation. So hopefully that's clear. Sorry to be a little redundant, but I don't want to set a precedent where we're just carving out areas, and I'm not accusing you of that, where we're just putting things because it's convenient or we happen to own it or whatever. I'd like to see the mitigation in the MOs targeted to where it's most effective, I guess. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I have one additional question. It might be more for critical area commission staff in regards to what is the commission's regulatory authority beyond that 5 5 years. So I guess, yeah, to ensure that it's kind of being maintained in perpetuity as what the intent of the mitigation bank is.
So yeah, thank you for those questions. So to speak to your question, Chair Roberson, right now we have the required 5-year, monitoring period with those reports. At the end of that period, there are, as written right now, additional reporting after that. But the MOU does include language regarding, the county, monitoring the site, and as we discussed earlier, potentially that recommendation that was made to maybe be more specific about adding that into the county's process, the parks, process for reviewing forested sites. As far as permanent protection, with that permanent protection easement requirement, that covers the protection of perpetuity. So it's like a two-part, I guess. Our actual the reporting requirements do end after 5 years. And we can add the recommendation to maybe clarify the county's responsibility beyond that, by adding it to their rotation of sites that they do monitor. And say the protection of perpetuity should be addressed by that easement for sites that are not county owned. We could add if the commission, the commission members would want to make a recommendation as far as like county owned properties to, speak to, the permanent protection and development. That's, a recommendation that could be, discussed with the county. And then also, I guess, just to follow up to Commissioner Roche on your, question about targeted mitigation. So the site analysis process that we included in the MOU, that was really to speak to proactively looking at a site to see, what ecological benefits the site would provide. It's not quite all the way to, the overall, the whole county-wide, review of where sites would be most beneficial or where stormwater management is needed. But that's, I guess, the beginning of looking at a more proactive approach is that site analysis process. So the way this whole effort started was the county does have a few sites that they've been thinking about. However, moving forward, we'd really like to transition to that. The purpose of the MOU, one of the major, goals is to transition to a more proactive site analysis process where, you're looking at the sites ahead of time and seeing, where mitigation, as you said, would be most effective and to target it in those areas. So I just wanted to follow up a little bit on that as well.
Tammy, you're on mute.
Tammy,
but I'm going to jump in real quick.
Sorry.
Just for clarification, Susan. So are you saying that for the MOU, all MOUs across the board, we're going to ask for an easement like that's in our MOU, or is that just in this one that we're looking at right now?
This is the first one we've had with the county, and that we do have that permanent, protection and perpetuity required for mitigation banks. So any bank that is approved will have to have that permanent protection easement in place. Yes.
I have a quick question.
All right, Commissioner Hans.
Thank you. I was curious as to with the site selected, whether or not the county's existing needs for planting would be met very quickly by the use of this particular site, and how quickly it would be anticipated that another site would need to be selected.
So
I guess
I will
somebody
maybe
from the county.
yes,
like
could step in
to-
on that. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so as far as for the this mitigation bank will cover all the county's obligation for existing projects and projects that are in the process, such as road improvements in Southern Kent Island, the Southern Kent Island Sanitary Project, the library that was addition that was on Kent Island. All of those mitigation requirements can easily be met on lot 16. A lot of our fee in lieu requirement that we've accepted over time can be met on lot 16. I'm not sure if it's going to be 100% or not at this point, but it's going to be a substantial amount of it, of what we've accepted. And so the idea of looking at the next bank is that if as the county collects fee in lieu in the future, we'd have a dedicated place, a maturing forest, and obligated property that could meet the requirements of us accepting that fee in lieu. Stephanie, did I hit that right? Or
Yeah, I think you did. And I want to also make it clear that we don't accept fee in lieu a whole lot. Usually it comes down to, like Steve was saying, the ski project, which was a county project that went through Southern Kent Island for sanitary purposes. So we're not collecting a whole bunch of fee in lieu that we have to spend, but we do have some obviously right now that we just need to utilize. But over time, we will eventually have more to do it on other sites as well.
Thank you.
All
I
right,
was just wondering if any secondary locations had been chosen then, since the fee in lieu might not, like, you might still have some left over. That's all I was curious about, given the 5-year timeline in order to kind of see this project to conclusion if it were to go forward.
yes, we do have a couple other properties that may lend themselves to being banks, and that was an important part in how we approached this project and how commission staff approached this process in creating templates for all future banks that would be under the umbrella of this MOU. So when we started the discussions, we were targeted on one bank, but we also did the forms and the process and the citing so it could be used on future banks in the county, with the idea we would be doing a second and maybe a third one. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any final comments, questions, discussions from commissioners or commission staff? I think Nick Kelly.
Yeah, just Commissioner Roberts, I just want to make sure. So I have here sort of things for commission staff and for county staff to work on. One is making sure within the MOU there's procedures to explain the processes for keeping things in perpetuity and how the county will monitor it after 5 years. 2, to make sure that the MOU clearly has how uses are limited through permit protection. I know Stephanie kind of alluded to that, so we'll just make sure and verify that language is pretty clear in the MOU. And then finally, based on Chair Fisher and Commissioner Rosa's comments, to look about whether there should be some sort of geographic or other sort of measures for identifying locations of future banks to include within the MOU. So those were the 3 items I had. I didn't know if there were any more that I missed.
I think that looks good. All right, that was a great conversation, robust. There's a lot of great input from everybody, so thank you. All right, I think that concludes agenda item number 1. And so thank you, Queen Anne's County, for attending and providing input.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm going to apologize. We got to take a few steps back. When we approved the minutes today. I had identified minutes from the December 2023 and was meant to request approval for the February 2024. I wasn't in attendance, and so I apologize. I forgot that the February meeting even happened. So we do need to go through that process to approve the February minutes. So we'll do that real quick before we begin agenda item number 2. So can I have a motion to approve the February 2024 minutes?
It's funny because I heard you say December and I thought maybe I'm missing something. But yeah. Yes, I move to approve the February minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner Grant. May I have a second motion to approve?
Second.
All right, and that was Commissioner.
Commissioner Patel.
Okay, thank you. All right, any amendments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any denials? Any abstentions? This is Commissioner Robertson. I will abstain from voting since I was not present for the February meeting. All right, so now we'll move on to agenda item number 2. So the following project will be presented as information only, and there will be no vote on this project today. Annie Sakaric will be presenting on proposed mitigation for the Bellevue Passage Museum, and at the completion, there will be an opportunity for commissioners to discuss and provide initial thoughts and comments on the project. All right, Annie, take it away.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Robertson. Hopefully everybody can see my screen in full screen, but please let me know if you can't. Perfect. Thank you. Again, I am Annie Sakaric. I will be presenting the Draft Bellevue Passage Museum Conditional Approval Project. So Talbot County and a local nonprofit, the Bellevue Passage Museum, are proposing to construct a museum at a county-owned park. This project is being presented to you for information only, so there will be no vote at this time. The applicant's just looking for general feedback. And we do have representatives from the project on the call, including Elisa DeFlo, the county planner, and Philip Logan and Dennis DeShields, who are representatives from the Bellevue Passage Museum. So I just want to thank them for their time, and they will be here to help answer questions and participate in the discussion at the end. So the project site is located in Talbot County on the Eastern Shore at the county-owned Bellevue Park, as shown with the red pin on this map. The village of Bellevue is a historically Black community on the Tredeavon River with a long history of maritime commerce, including being the site of multiple seafood packing plants like the W.H. Valiant Packing Company, which is pictured in the upper left here, which operated from 1899 to 1946. Bellevue has also served as a landing point for the Oxford Bellevue Ferry since 1683. So as I will discuss in more detail on the following slides, the proposed Bellevue Passage Museum project requires conditional approval because the project exceeds the allowable lot coverage limit. So please keep in mind throughout this presentation that the county is looking for your preliminary feedback regarding the proposed development and mitigation and whether the current proposal fully addresses the requirements for conditional approval. The project site is outlined in blue on this aerial, and it is located entirely within the Limited Development Area, or LDA. The Bellevue Park is currently improved with a pier, ferry wharf, boat ramp, basketball court, playground area, pavilion, and paved parking area totaling 50,055 square feet, or 32% of the site. Typically, the allowable lot coverage limit within the LDA is 15%. But as you can see, there's a lot of existing legally developed lot coverage on site, particularly in the buffer. The orange on this slide is the approximate configuration of the proposed project. And here is the proposed site plan. The project includes the construction of a new Bellevue Passage Museum building, kitchen garden, patio, deck, walkways, and parking area. A portion of the proposed walkway is located in the buffer in order to connect to the existing ferry landing. And if you can notice, the buffer is over here on the right side of your screen, highlighted in yellow. The orange shading represents the proposed lot coverage. The applicant is proposing to add an additional 10,098 square feet of lot coverage on site, bringing the total lot coverage for the project site up to 60,153 square feet, or 39%, which is an expansion beyond that existing 32% of legally non-conforming lot coverage, which again is why conditional approval is required. And then the green circles represent the proposed tree plantings, which I will go into more detail about on the next slide. Typically, when the commission reviews a conditional approval request to exceed lot coverage, the applicant proffers one-to-one mitigation for the lot coverage overage beyond all other required mitigation. Therefore, the total required planting for lot coverage and buffer mitigation for this project is 11,654 square feet. The applicant is proposing to plant 56 2-inch caliper trees, as shown in green on this site plan, which provides 11,200 square feet of planting credit. You'll notice that all the plantings are located outside of the buffer, and that's because, as you saw in those previous aerials, the buffer is already developed with improvements associated with the ferry wharf. In addition to these plantings, the applicant is proposing to use pervious materials to construct the parking area and walkways, install rainwater collection cisterns in the kitchen garden, and use rooftop disconnects to address stormwater management for the proposed buildings. In order for the proposed stormwater management to be considered an offset for conditional approval, it would need to be above and beyond what is typically required. And because local stormwater management plan approval is still pending, it's unclear at this time if the stormwater treatments can count toward that total conditional approval mitigation requirement. In terms of agency review, a letter was actually just recently received on March 1st from the Department of Natural Resources, Wildlife and Heritage Service that confirms that there are no records of rare, threatened, or endangered species within the project area. Review by the Maryland Historical Trust is still in process, and local approval of the stormwater management and sediment and erosion control plans are pending. And while this is not typically required for local projects, commission staff wanted to provide a brief coastal resiliency assessment for this site in case it would help drive some of the discussion regarding potential offsets. The project site is waterfront to the Tread Avon River, and based on desktop analysis, appears to be vulnerable to sea level rise, coastal flooding, and storm surge. So, for example, a portion of the property, including existing infrastructure, is projected to be impacted by 2050 and 2100 nuisance tidal inundation, as shown on that screenshot on the left. And the entire site is at risk of storm tide flooding from a Category 2 storm, as shown on the right. So as noted before, the project exceeds the allowable lot coverage limit, therefore conditional approval by the commission is required. When reviewing projects of this nature, the Critical Area Commission must consider how the proposal addresses the requirements for conditional approval under COMAR 270206. And you can find the entire list of conditional approval requirements on pages 3 and 4 of the memo provided. And to reiterate, the total planting requirement is 11,654 square feet, and 11,200 square feet of plantings are proposed at this time. So with that, the county and Bellevue Passage Museum representatives would like to hear your preliminary thoughts regarding the proposed development plans and mitigation for this conditional approval request. In particular, the county wishes to discuss whether additional offsets will be required to allow an exceedance of the lot coverage limit, and if so, whether the commission may have any additional guidance regarding offsets to proffer. Given the limited space available for additional on-site tree plantings, alternative offsets may need to be considered to fulfill the requirements, potentially including any offsets that may be associated with coastal resiliency. Some examples of offsets that the commission has previously approved for other conditional approval projects include the payment of a fee in lieu, removal of existing lot coverage on site, native herbaceous seed mix plantings, conservation landscaping, and stormwater management above what is required. And with that, I will turn it over to the subcommittee chair for questions and discussion.
All right, thank you, Annie. Commissioners, any discussion from commissioners? And if so, please indicate by raising your hand. All right, Chair Fisher.
Thank you. I'll be bold, get things started. Annie, could you go back to the site plan? Okay. So on the aerial, it looked like there was a lot of space. And on here, it looks like there's less space, but it's a little bit more difficult for me to tell what's taken up and what's not. Can someone describe the site constraints in a little bit more detail? It sounded like there was limited room for additional tree plantings in particular.
Yeah, Elisa or somebody else with the county or project, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I can jump in. Philip Logan here. I'm the architect and the applicant for the project. Actually, the site plan, the aerial might be this is an important, but it shows a lot of the paths. But I think where your question was the contrast between this and the aerial, I think.
Yeah.
This was the first pass at plantings. We could actually continue some of the plantings, but there are some existing trees on the property. But actually these trees that you see on the below the path are actually quite a bit larger. Most of the trees that are here, there are a couple others down by the parking area towards the ferry. This is all very open property. So there actually could be room for more plantings. We're also looking at the property itself is just a rolling grass field. So we could look at also adding more wild, more swales, more rain gardens. Also on the project on this call is Josh Mills representing DBF, and they're the civil engineer, and they did all of the calculations in terms of existing coverage and also all the planting mitigation. So yeah, so you can see here what's the basketball court and the pavilion, all of that is down at the parking area. We were looking at actually resurfacing the basketball, and that could be a potential because right now it's it needs a big repair. The museum package is actually, the museum project is at the upper end towards the Poplar Street, which runs vertically. Yeah, that's there we go. That's really helpful. The smaller lot up above is actually a privately owned lot that is being contributed to the project as well. So we're actually doing a community project in addition to the built structures. Does that help answer your question?
I think so. So it sounds like if there is a constraint on additional plantings, it's more related to tree canopy and root zone than anything. And in that regard, I do wonder, especially given potential periodic flooding of the site, if something along the lines of salt tolerant grasses or some understory might be appropriate in this case. The basketball court is the basketball court. You mentioned it was in poor shape right now, but has that historically been used by the community? Because I for one, I'm just one person here, but I wouldn't want to necessarily pull that up if it's a popular amenity for the community.
I pass that back to Dennis. Do you want to speak on that? It is a very important part. There are limited community services in Bellevue, but Dennis, you want to speak to that?
Yes. Hi, my name is Dennis Shields, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Bellevue Passage Museum. And yes, the basketball court is still being used by the community. In fact, I think the usage has probably increased over the past couple of years, but unfortunately has been limited due to the poor shape of the court.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, and I think so that would be something that at least I, for one, would suggest we try to preserve if at all possible.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if there's more to the understory on this one.
Also, the path that is connects is really a safety measure because there are so many people that walk and bike, and this is quite a dangerous road in some situations because all of the boat traffic, they actually pile up on the road and park their trailers along the road because there isn't enough parking. This is probably one of the largest marinas, public marinas, and offloading ramp in the county, actually. Preston, who's been involved representing the parks, has actually tried to acquire property from the development to expand the parking for the trailers. But we've added this path to help provide at least a safe way for people to walk into town as well.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So I guess just to clarify, what I'm hearing is that there's like a 454 like delta kind of between the required and the proposed like kind of tree canopy, and it looks like it sounds like there's room on site to potentially address that that difference. From the applicant. Yeah, 11,654, and what's being proposed is 11,200.
Yeah, but that's just the canopy. There are other measures, obviously, that we're proposing that are not part of that calculation. So the 11,200 is just for is the equivalent in terms of credit for the trees. And Josh, kick in here if you want. But there are other sort of mitigation that we're doing, and I'm not sure how you calculate those credits. Like this, we are collecting rainwater. We're creating a kitchen garden. There's many ways that we're actually looking to improve stormwater management, and those plans are in development.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I'm Josh Mills. I'm Chris, the lead surveyor on this. He's out of the office, so I'm kind of filling in with him. But just kind of add to it, and Elisa can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything in this that would be different than just your normal run-of-the-mill, buffer management plan, except that we're, like we mentioned before, we're exceeding the normal limit of lot coverage because there's so much pavement and asphalt and parking lot and everything associated with the boat ramp. And then the other significant difference is just that you really can't plant the buffer on this project because it's a parking lot right now. But besides that, I think there's plenty of room on site outside of the buffer to plant. You could plant a lot more plantings than what we show here if we need them. So I don't think space or anything like that would be too big of an issue.
Great.
all right, thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I just had a quick stormwater follow-up question. So you mentioned having the collection cisterns and the disconnects. Are those needed to meet local stormwater requirements, or is that in addition to what would be required to meet stormwater for the new structures?
As far as I'm concerned, they were additional, but go ahead, Josh. You may have a more technical response.
I was just saying they're above and beyond, because I think you could really get away with just this on this project, so they are above and beyond.
Is there an official stormwater plan that the county is considering?
This is Elisa DeFloro, Talbot County. The project goes to our TAC meeting next week, and we will have some more stormwater management related comments then, but the Public Works Department hasn't looked at this design yet.
All right, thank you. So I think that concludes the discussion regarding Bellevue Passage Museum.
That sounds right. So my summary is, it seems to me that the commission is recommending that they use understory and warm season grasses or other sort of salt tolerant species to meet mitigation on site. That seems to be the recommendation I've gotten out of this conversation.
All right. All right, that concludes this agenda item. Thank you, everyone. All right, we can
Thank you very
move
much.
on.
Yep.
Yes.
And thank you, Annie, for a great presentation.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3, and this will be the first project on today's agenda that the project committee will vote on. And this project is the Maryland Department of Natural Resources, Sandy Point State Park, South Beach Area Restoration Project. Jonathan Copeland will present the project, so I will turn the meeting over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Can everyone see my presentation?
It is not in presentation mode.
All right. Is that better?
Yep. There you go.
All right. All right. I guess we can get. I just wanted to thank Leanne Chandler from the Department of Natural Resources for being in attendance today. She's the project lead for DNR. So hopefully both her and I can answer any questions you have at the end. So good morning, commissioners. My name is Jonathan Copeland, and I will be presenting the South Beach Restoration Project at Sandy Point State Park. This project is coming in today for commission vote. Critical area staff recommend approval of the project with conditions. Sandy Point State Park is located in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, just north of the city of Annapolis and adjacent to the William J. Preston Jr. Bridge, or Bay Bridge. It is surrounded by the Chesapeake Bay to the northeast, east, and south, and by Mizzick Pond to the west. The park is 844 acres and is a mixture of forest, open recreational lawn areas, wetlands, and beach areas. In 1948, the state of Maryland purchased the property and officially opened the park to the public on June 25th, 1952. That same year, the park became one of the first racially integrated beaches. Sandy Point State Park is located within the Resource Conservation Area, or RCA designation of the critical area. Roughly 546 out of the 844 acre properties located within the critical area. The area boxed red is the project location. As you can see, it is located entirely within the RCA. The restoration project will focus on the 35-acre South Beach section of the property. During peak season, summer, the park receives nearly 10,000 visitors per day, with the vast majority utilizing the South Beach area. The South Beach area offers visitors with boat access, open recreational lawn, fishing, and beachfront. Due to the high visitation rate, the area has been in severe need of improvements. Currently, the South Beach area offers minimum shading, seating, and paved pathways for patrons to utilize during their visit. This has led to some safety concerns for both visitors and first responders. As you can see from this aerial photograph, visitors have limited access to shade and seating areas, picnic tables, and benches. Furthermore, significant saturated soils to the south end of the lawn area limits the ability of visitors to quickly and safely access the beach areas. To provide visitors with adequate facilities, trails, seating, and shading, the Department of Natural Resources, or DNR, proposes to upgrade the South Beach area by installing shade trees in the lawn area, adding picnic tables, relocating barbecue stands, adding additional dumpsters and coal receptacles, elevating the boardwalk, and providing a market circle for food vendors. This information can be found on page 2 of your staff report. 71 square feet of critical area buffer are anticipated from the elevated boardwalk, along with the removal of 41 diseased, invasive, or otherwise small shade trees along the open lawn area. Mitigation for the project will be satisfied for both tree removal and critical area buffer impacts through the planting of 170 trees and 960 shrub species along the improved gravel trail system and open lawn area. The trees will serve as mitigation and provide shading and habitat for visitors and animals. The following project has received the following authorizations and concurrences from the regulatory agencies below. DNR Wildlife and Heritage Service indicates there are no rare, threatened, or endangered species present within the project area. United States Fish and Wildlife Service says no further consultation is required. Maryland Historic Trust indicates there are no historic properties within the project area. Maryland Department of Environment has authorized a letter of authorization for non-tidal wetland buffer impacts, which was issued December 28, 2023, with erosion and sediment control and stormwater management authorization still pending. Public notice was issued February 8th, 2024 for the project. DNR has completed the required coastal resiliency and planning for this project. The expected life expectancy of this project is 25 years with a high flood tolerance, given that all the improvements are at grade level and there are no structural aspects to the project to impede flood flows. The aforementioned improvements are located beyond the 2050 sea level rise prediction, though the entire site is predicted to be below sea level in 2100, as seen in the following slide. DNR anticipates minimum maintenance for the site during storm and flooding events due to the nature of the features added: gravel trails, trees, and picnic tables. These improvements are meant to last as long as the park remains above sea level predictions. These improvements are needed to provide visitors with the adequate resources necessary to enjoy their visit. Should the commission find the proposal acceptable, the commission staff recommend approval with the following condition. Prior to the start of construction, the Department of Natural Resources shall submit to the commission staff final erosion and sediment control and stormwater management plans from the Maryland Department of Environment. At this time, I thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back to Chair Robinson for any questions.
All right, thank you. So are there any questions for Jonathan, DNR, or any DNR or the DNR representatives? I do have I have a question in regards to the material associated with like the concrete pads and the concrete sidewalks. Was there any considerations on other material that was maybe pervious or semi-impervious for these structures?
I will defer that to Leanne. Leanne, are you still on the call? Oh, yes, you are. There you are.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration today. We did consider that, but unfortunately, due to just the intense use that's proposed, so many of the products, whether it's pervious pavers or those types of things, just don't stand up that well to such intense use. So we tried, yeah, we had a lot of consideration for that, and it was just a maintenance concern that repairing those things would be worse than actually trying to, address it from a stormwater perspective from the beginning.
All right, thank you. Good to hear that was considered in the project development. And I do have a general question. It was mentioned like there's 1,000 linear feet of leaning rail. What's the purpose of the leaning rail, or what is the leaning rail?
The rail is sort of a barrier between Jonathan, can you pull up an aerial of the site? It's basically
yes,
a low fence between the parking lot and the entrance to the picnic areas. So instead of it just being a vertical fence, it provides sort of a resting area for people to like sit down on or put their stuff on as they're getting all their stuff out of their car and entering. It also will provide kind of a way to channel visitors to use the designated paths. Because right now, if you're ever out there, it's evident that people go wherever, whenever, and it's just trampled to death. So this will kind of help focus people to certain pathways into the entire picnic area.
All right, thank you. Do any other commission staff or commissioners have any questions for regarding the project? All right, if not, may I have a motion to approve the staff recommendation with the condition that before the start of work, the sediment erosion control plan and stormwater are approved plans be provided to the commission?
I make a motion.
All right. right, and who was that?
Commissioner Marion.
Commissioner Marion, thank you. May I have a second motion to approve with the condition, the staff recommendation?
Seconded by Sandy Hertz.
Thank you, Commissioner Hertz. Any discussion on the motion? Great. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any commissioner denying? And finally, any commissioner abstaining? All right, agenda item number 3 officially done. And we can move on to agenda item number 4. Thank you, DNR.
Thank you, Leanne.
All right, the final agenda item. The second project on today's agenda that the project committee will vote on is the Department of Natural Resources mitigation plan for Summers Cove Marina. Kate will present the project, so I will turn the meeting over to her.
Hi, hold on one second while I make sure that I can get this to work the way it's supposed to. Okay, let's see. Sorry. All right, can everyone see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
It's in the right
Okay.
mode too.
It is bright blue, yes.
No, it's in the right mode. You're good.
Oh, it's in the right mode, yeah. Good morning. My name is Kate Durant. I will be presenting the Summers Cove Marina Mitigation Plan. I would like to welcome Anna Johnson, who has been working as the consultant on the project, and I believe Kelly Wright with DNR is also joining us today. So they should be able to help answer some questions. I apologize for coughing. I've gotten the plague from my child again. So let's jump into it. This project is located in Somerset County, in the city of Crisfield. And you can see in the outline here, Summers Cove is very much in downtown Crisfield, and then a closer up photo outlined in orange showing the actual tax parcels related to the marina. So the marina itself is the larger of the tax parcels, and then there's also a boat ramp associated with the marina. Some of this should sound familiar because this project was approved by the Critical Area Commission at the September meeting. Now we need to vote on the proposed mitigation plan that DNR has submitted. So the applicant is still the same. It is still DNR and DGS. As I said, the commission voted to approve the project on September 6th, 2023, with 4 different conditions. And the DNR has provided a mitigation proposal to address conditions 2 and 3, which I will show you in the next slide as a way to remind you of what those are. So commission staff is bringing these mitigation plans back to the commission for a formal review and vote by commission members. So here are the conditions number 2 and number 3. They are also listed on the first page of your staff report. The short version is that condition number 2 is related to a mitigation plan for the 10% pollutant reduction requirement of 0.64 pounds of phosphorus removal and 15,648 square feet of mitigation for the boat ramp replacement. And then condition 3 relates to mitigation plans to address the 2.75 acres of buffer mitigation. And in our conditions, we said that the mitigation requirements may be met through combination of on-site or off-site projects, as well as offsets for the buffer mitigation. or other natural and nature-based features. The mitigation package that DNR is proposing, this table is a little confusing, so I'm going to do my best to walk you through it. But they will start with the 10% phosphorus reduction. The required mitigation was 0.64 pounds of phosphorus removal per year. They are proposing to remove 3.9 pounds of phosphorus per year through a submerged gravel wetland, as well as removing some paved areas and replacing them with permeable pavers. So they will actually have an excess credit of 2.65 pounds of extra phosphorus that they're removing per year. Then when we look at the buffer mitigation, the boat ramp was a requirement of 15,648 square feet of planting, and they are providing 38,527 square feet of planting, which is 0.88 acres. And the bulkhead required 2.75 acres of planting, and they are providing 1.07 acres of Phragmites removal and replanting. So when it comes to the boat ramp mitigation requirement, they are providing extra planting for the boat ramp of 22,879 square feet. However, for the bulkhead, they have a deficit that they still need to meet of 1.68 acres of planting. When you combine all of their mitigation, their proposed mitigation plantings, there's a deficit of 1.16 acres of planting that need to be provided. And all of the plantings that are proposed will be a mixture of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, etc. So it is a nice combination of plantings. Here's a proposed mitigation plan. They are also, as you can see with the stars throughout the marina, they are also proposing to install 10 new tide gates. So in the area where my pointer is, which is purple, as well as a couple of areas over here, that is where the frag eradication and replanting will occur. So that's the 1.07 acres. The yellow area along this existing marsh is where the tree planting will occur, and that's the 0.88 acres, which gives us a total of 1.95 acres. They are proposing their stormwater best management plan up in the northern corner of the site, and that will provide the 2.8 pounds of phosphorus per year. Oh, I messed up on my slide. Sorry, guys. The permeable pavers are not providing 2.8 pounds of phosphorus per year. They are providing 0.4 pounds of phosphorus per year. Sorry, 0.49 pounds of phosphorus per year for the red area here. And then again, the tide gates. So that is the full proposed mitigation plan. Overall, DNR is proposing to plant a total of 84,938 square feet, which is 1.95 acres of mitigation, as well as installing the 2 types of stormwater management BMPs that will treat a total of 3.29 pounds of phosphorus per year. And then the 10 new tide gates or 10 new tide valves that will hopefully help address the flooding on the site. So again, they are exceeding the amount of phosphorus removal that they need to provide by 2.65 pounds. However, the proposed plantings are 1.16 acres short, which is 50,500 square feet. So this is for the commission to review and discuss. In In the past, the commission has allowed the 10% phosphorus reduction to be met through buffer planting offsets at a rate of 2 pounds of phosphorus for every acre of buffer planted. We have not gone the other way with that, where the commission has not looked at that the other way and said, you are providing 2 pounds of phosphorus, so that would compensate for an acre of buffer planted. However, if we applied the rate of the 2 pounds of phosphorus for every acre of buffer planted, the extra 2.65 pounds of phosphorus reduction would equate to 1.33 acres of buffer planting. So I guess the question for the commission members is, do the additional phosphorus reduction and proposed tide valves to reduce flooding provide the appropriate and sufficient out-of-kind mitigation to meet the 1.16 acres of remaining buffer mitigation? And before we get to that, I also have a few photos that Hitesh, our Somerset County representative, sent to me. And I believe these are from last year's Governor Taw's crab and clam bake. So you can see some of the areas, you can see how it's flooding. And based on what I can tell, this seems to be somewhat in the area, I'll show you on here, of the location of the proposed submerged gravel wetland. So hopefully it will help. That will help. But yes, the parking lot at the marina definitely floods quite strongly. So with that, I will turn it back to Commissioner Robinson.
All right, thank you, Kate. Are there any questions for Kate, DNR, or Anna? I have I guess one question, or if you could just kind of run through things again, Kate. So you mentioned that there's like a deficit of 1.6 acres that's not being planted, and that the nitrogen equates to 1.3 acres. So do we still have a delta of like 0.3? Just if you could just give a summary, like that would be helpful. I just didn't jot things down correctly as you were running through.
So there's a deficit of planting that is 1.16 acres.
1.1. Okay.
1.16. Sorry. So and like I said, in the past, the commission has allowed 10% phosphorus reduction to be met through planting. We have not, the commission has not allowed at this point extra phosphorus reduction to meet leftover required planting. But the phosphorus reduction would provide 1.33 acres. So there would actually, it would, if we did the math the other way, so it would equate to 1.33 acres of buffer planting, which would exceed the deficit of 1.16 acres.
Yes, no, thank you. I just did my math wrong. I did 1.6 minus kind of the 1.3. So I had it. I just did my math wrong. Okay, thank you for clarifying and clearing up my poor math. All right. Anyone else have any questions? All right, next for commission staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Robertson. This is Charlotte with the Critical Area Commission. I just wanted to add too that the site is IDA, intensely developed area, and also designated as a buffer modification area, just so that commissioners can take that into consideration as well. The primary mitigation related to IDAs is the stormwater phosphorus reduction. And given that we were in a buffer modification area, that also influenced the bulkhead replacement for mitigation requirement.
All right, seeing no hands raised, we can move forward with if I have a motion to approve the mitigation plan as submitted and presented by staff. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
And this is Commissioner.
Patel.
All right, thank you. May I have a second motion?
Commissioner Grant, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Grant. Any discussion on the motion? Now I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Are there any commissioners that vote to deny the project? Are there any commissioners abstaining from today's vote? All right, I think that wraps things up with agenda item number 4. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so this will now conclude the project subcommittee agenda, and we'll circle back on March 20th at 1 p.m. for the full commission meeting. So we'll see everybody then.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.